The sound of her breathing changed before I even noticed the silence. 1 second, Mara was laughing through tears, saying she'd finally feel light again. The next, her eyes rolled back, and the world stopped spinning. I remember screaming her name, but the walls swallowed every echo. What if your escape became your prison? What if the person you died to save was already gone, right there in your arm? The clock on the microwave blinked 3:17 a.m., 3 minutes past the last time she ever spoke. My hands shook, pressing her chest, counting numbers that didn't matter anymore. Sirens in the distance. I kept whispering, "Don't do this. Don't leave me." But she was already leaving. How many times can a soul break before it disappears completely? The next morning, I woke up on the same couch, wrapped in a blanket I didn't remember pulling over me. The apartment smelled like bleach and rain. There were no paramedics, no neighbors, just silence. The kind that hums inside your head, heavy and hollow. Her shoes were still by the door. Her lighter still on the table. I picked it up and turned it over in my hand, wondering if I could burn the memory out of me. But memories don't burn. They crawl under your skin and stay there. People think the hardest part is the funeral, but it's not. It's the days after, when everyone moves on and you're still stuck in that room, replaying every second, wondering what you could have done differently. The guilt becomes its own addiction. I kept hearing her laugh in the pipes, her voice in the static. Maybe I didn't want to let go. Maybe part of me died there too. I told the police it was an accident. Told her mother she was asleep when it happened. Lies come easy when the truth is unbearable. Every time Mrs. Collins called, I couldn't answer. Her voice broke in my voicemail. "She loved you, Lena. She trusted you." I wanted to throw the phone out the window, but guilt doesn't die that easily. That night I walked to the bridge where we used to watch fireworks as kids. I looked down at the water and thought about how quickly light disappears. I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to live without her. The city hummed below me, distant and uncaring. I whispered her name into the wind, and for a second I swore I heard her whisper mine back. Grief doesn't hit all at once. It leaks in slowly, through the cracks of your everyday life. I'd walk past her old coffee mug, still sitting in the sink, and feel my chest collapse. Everyone said time would help, but time doesn't heal what you keep reliving. I stopped answering calls, stopped opening the curtains. I just sat in that room, staring at the spot on the carpet where she took her last breath. The silence became a sound I couldn't turn off. Some nights I'd whisper to the air, "Are you still here?" and swear I felt something answer back. People started avoiding me. At the grocery store, at work, even online. Their eyes said what their mouths didn't. She's the one who let her friend die. Maybe they were right. I carried that label like a second skin. Every time I heard a siren, my body froze. Every time I saw someone laughing, I wondered how they did it. How they could still feel anything when I couldn't even breathe without remembering her. At night, I started dreaming of her. Sometimes she was alive, laughing, radiant, begging me to follow her into the streetlight. Other times she was cold, accusing, whispering, "Why didn't you save me?" I'd wake up drenched in sweat, gripping the sheets, hearing her voice echo from the shadows. I started keeping her lighter under my pillow, as if holding it could keep her close. But all it did was keep the flame alive inside my guilt. The day of the funeral, I stood in the back, watching everyone pretend they hadn't given up on her long before she died. Mrs. Collins never looked at me once. Her face was carved from stone, eyes dry but empty. I wanted to run to her, to say I tried, but the words wouldn't come. The preacher talked about peace, about rest, about God's mercy. But there was no mercy in that coffin, only the echo of what we lost. After the funeral, I went home and poured everything down the drain. The bottles, the pills, the promises, but the pain stayed, so I found something stronger. I told myself it was just for one night, to quiet the noise, to forget the smell of her perfume, the sound of her last breath. One night turned into 2, then 3. And before I knew it, I wasn't mourning her anymore. I was becoming her. At first, I told myself it was just to sleep. One hit to quiet the memories, one hit to silence the guilt. But heroin doesn't whisper. It paralyzes, it tells you you're safe, that you've earned peace. The warmth spread through me like forgiveness, soft and cruel. I thought I'd found a way to feel her again, like she was still beside me, laughing in the dark. But every high carried her face, and every low carried mine. Days started blending together. I stopped eating, stopped answering texts, stopped being someone I recognized. My apartment became a cave, curtains drawn, air heavy with smoke and shame. Sometimes I'd wake up in strange places, strange arms. I wasn't trying to die. I just didn't care if I did. Somewhere between grief and escape, I'd forgotten what it meant to be alive. I started hearing her voice again. Not in dreams this time, but in the walls, the static, the quiet. She'd say, "I miss you, Lena." I'd answer, "I'm coming." The line between reality and memory blurred. I thought using would bring her closer, but it only made her farther away. I'd stare at the ceiling, waiting for her to appear. But all I saw were shadows dancing like ghosts I'd made myself. It got worse. I pawned my mother's necklace, my TV, anything for another bag. When the high hit, it felt like love. Warm, endless, cruel. But when it faded, it left me colder than before. I'd sit in the corner of that same apartment, trembling, whispering her name. Somewhere in the haze, I realized I wasn't chasing the drug. I was chasing her, the version of her before the needle, before the lies, before the night everything broke. One night, I woke up on the bathroom floor, not sure if I was breathing. My skin was cold, my lips numb. For a moment I saw her, standing in the doorway, eyes soft and sad. She said nothing, just watched me fade. That was the first time I realized she wasn't haunting me. I was haunting myself, and if I didn't stop, I'd end up exactly where she was. It happened on a Tuesday. I don't remember the hit itself, just the moment the world went black. There was no light, no sound, just a numb silence that felt almost peaceful. Then, a voice, faint and far away. "Don't do this again, Lena." I thought it was her. Maybe it was. The next thing I knew, someone was shaking me, shouting my name. I came back choking on air and regret. They said I was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt unfinished. When I opened my eyes, the world was white and humming. The hospital smelled like bleach and second chances. Tubes ran into my arm, and monitors beeped like they were measuring my shame. A nurse asked my name. I didn't answer. I just stared at the ceiling tiles, wondering how many times you could almost die before it stopped being an accident. They sent a counselor to talk to me, a man who looked too calm for a place filled with ghosts. He didn't ask about the drugs. He asked about the girl, about Mara. I told him everything. The laughter, the fear, the night she left. When I finished, he said something I'll never forget. "You can't save the dead by dying with them." For the first time in months, I cried, not from pain, but from the small, terrifying spark of wanting to live. Rehab wasn't peace. It was war. I shook for days, sweated through sheets, screamed into pillows. Every cell in my body begged for the thing that was killing me. But Ethan kept showing up calm as a sunrise. "You're not broken," he said. "You're healing." I didn't believe him, but I listened. Sometimes that's all recovery needs, a heartbeat willing to listen. One night, I dreamed of Mara again, but she wasn't angry this time. She was standing in a field, barefoot, smiling like she used to. "You can let go now," she said. "You don't have to follow me anymore." I woke up crying, but the air felt different, lighter, like something had finally been set free. Maybe forgiveness doesn't come from others. Maybe it comes from learning to breathe again. Recovery wasn't a sunrise. It was a slow unburying. Every morning I woke up heavy, shaking, waiting for the storm to start inside my body. The counselors said pain meant progress. I didn't believe them until one afternoon I realized the shaking had stopped and I was still here, alive, breathing. Sometimes survival is the quietest miracle. Group therapy was harder than withdrawal, sitting in a circle, saying the words out loud. I used because I couldn't forgive myself. Each story felt like holding a mirror I'd avoided, but listening to others bleed honesty gave me strength. We were strangers stitched together by survival. They asked us to write a letter to the person we lost. Mine started with anger and ended with love. Mara, I hated you for leaving me, but I hated myself more for staying. When I read it aloud, my voice cracked, and the room went silent. For the first time, the pain felt shared, not hidden. Weeks passed. My hand stopped trembling when I touched the world again. I painted, I ran, I laughed, a sound I thought I'd forgotten how to make. Ethan said recovery isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without drowning. Every brushstroke, every breath felt like proof that I could. The day I left rehab, the sky was blinding. I stood on the steps holding my suitcase, terrified of the world waiting for me. Ethan hugged me goodbye and whispered, "Remember, every sunrise you wake up clean is a victory." I nodded, unsure if I believed him. But I wanted to. Maybe hope doesn't come all at once. Maybe it comes in mornings like this one. The first weeks outside felt unreal. The city hadn't changed, but I had. Every corner reminded me of what I'd lost and what I hadn't. I rented a small room above a cafe, started washing dishes for cash. It wasn't much, but it was honest. Every plate I cleaned felt like a promise kept to the girl who never got a second chance. One afternoon I saw Mrs. Collins on the street. For months I'd avoided her, but guilt kept following me like a shadow. She looked smaller than I remembered, grief carved into her shoulders. I walked over before I could change my mind. The air between us felt heavy with everything unsaid. When she looked up, there was no anger, just sadness. I told her everything. The lies, the panic, the guilt that almost killed me. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she reached out and touched my hand. Her voice broke when she said, "Mara loved you." That's enough. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was peace. For the first time, I felt the weight lift. I started volunteering at a recovery center downtown. At first I just made coffee, wiped tables, listened. Then one day a girl came in, shaking, terrified, saying she'd lost her best friend too. I took her hand and said the words Ethan once told me. "You're not broken. You're healing." And for the first time, I believed them. At night, I walked to the river. The water moves the same way it did that night, but I don't. I light her old silver lighter and let the flame flicker in the wind. I tell her everything I've learned, that love can survive death, that forgiveness isn't surrender, that I'm still here. Then I close the lighter and whisper, "Thank you for letting me go." Years passed before I could say her name without breaking. I still thought about her every morning, but the ache had softened into something quieter. Gratitude. I had a job at the recovery center now, a little apartment with plants that somehow stayed alive, and a rhythm that didn't include fear. Some scars stay, but they stop bleeding. One night a new group arrived, faces young and lost, eyes I recognized too well. I told myself I'd just listen. But when one of them said, "My best friend died in front of me," something inside me opened. My throat tightened, my palms shook. I realized it was time. "My best friend died in my arms from heroin," I said. The words echoed like thunder, but I didn't hide this time. I told them about the night, the silence, the guilt, the climb back. I watched their faces soften, not out of pity, but recognition. Grief turned into connection right there in that room. Her story, our story, wasn't ending. It was saving someone else begin. After the meeting, a girl came up to me shaking, saying she hadn't used in 3 days. "Do you think it gets better?" she asked. I smiled through the sting in my chest and said, "It doesn't get easier, but you get stronger." And I meant it, because I finally had. That night I walked home beneath the same stars that once watched us fall apart. I stopped at the bridge where she'd said goodbye to the world and whispered, "We made it." The wind carried my words away, and for the first time I didn't feel alone. Healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering without the pain. And every person I help is another reason she didn't die for nothing.